Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about my Stormcall Elementalist. This build is the logical next stepping stone into endgame casters with a lightning shell with Doriani's prototype and a extremely strong main skill, which in this case is going to be Stormcall. I'm going to talk about all the synergies it has this league that weren't there last league. This build has incredible clear speed, insane AoE, really good single target, around about 200 million plus. Good defenses, feels incredible to play, but also comes with a huge price tag. So this is basically my aspirational build of the league where I'm going to pump in all my currency. It was made with 16.5 Dunes breaches in mind. It is, in my opinion, one of, if not the most efficient build for that kind of content, but it can do basically anything you want it to. Alongside Dorianis, we're also using Soul Eater tech, we're using golems. Basically, this build is like a shell of the greatest hits of OP caster stuff this league. Two disclaimers before we start. It is very hard to share these kind of aspirational builds. I do it every league, but I understand that you can't really replicate them one-to-one, and that's not what these kind of build guides are for. They're for to kind of, I don't know, I guess educate and give you a little bit of an idea of the build, and then for you to make the necessary changes to maybe make it work for yourself. These videos are less of me giving you an exact cooking recipe rather than just more showing you what I've been doing and you maybe picking up on some stuff in there. But the second point is the Merc setup is incredibly important on this, especially since we're running Doriani's prototype. There's a lot of small things going on here, so your Merc doesn't die, so pay attention to that segment at least. First, Stormcall. Stormcall at its base looks like this. It usually has a 1.5 second duration, which is something that you have to work around because otherwise the skill just feels very awful. It has a extremely efficient cast time at 0.5, decent damage effectiveness, but the real kicker comes when you realize that you can actually overlap up to 5 times with Awakened Spell Cascade, which adds these areas of effect on the side. And as you can see in the middle, there is a point where they very comfortably overlap. Now, in my testing, the overlap starts at around about 4.9 meter radius to overlap 5 times if you exactly name lock the enemy. But going over it makes the build, I mean, obviously spread out even more, but also makes the overlapping a little bit more comfortable, right? You don't have to perfectly aim and name lock. If enemies move out of it, they're still getting a little bit of grace by all the 5 for a little bit. So overall, this is like up to you. It starts at 4.9. I know it's hard to get over, but I'm even overkilling with something like Awakened Increased Area of Effect. If you want to remove this for extra damage, you can do so. Number 2, the Coiling Whispers Soul Eater tech. So what exactly is that? So Coiling Whispers makes it so you, when 90% of your hex's duration expires, eat 1 soul per enemy power. Even if you know what's going on here, please still stay around. There's like a small little tweak here that you have to do in order to make it work on this build, but it's going to be even more glorious. So basically you go into a map, and I'm just going to lightning warp on top of enemies and show you. So up here is your Soul Eater stack, right? So you have this, 28, and you should be up in like basically immediately. Yeah, there you go. 45 stacks. So our lightning warp is basically all you need. Now, with all the AoE scaling, the lightning warp also has crazy AoE. So even if you don't exactly get into a pack, it will immediately just fill you up. So your playstyle will kind of be like lightning warp cast, lightning warp cast. You don't have to like target enemies or anything like that because your lightning warp has like 4 meter radius. So you just as much as get into the vicinity of mobs and it's going to be fine, right? So that's kind of the idea behind it. And the way you do this is without a curse ring, actually. You don't need a delve ring. We're using a dusk ring in your left ring slot, and this has to be in your left ring slot. 15% reduced skill effect duration. This plus all the other skill effect duration you have actually is enough. And the thing is, I just said earlier that Stormcall, you really don't want to have that delay, right? 1.5 second delay, we actually get down to I think it's 0.3 at this point. Yeah, 0.3 seconds, and it kind of perfectly overlaps with what you want to do for Coiling Whispers anyway. Other than the 15% from your ring, you also get 10% from this anoint right here, Hasty Demise. This is a new node, and then you also get the 25% in total from the Window of Opportunity cluster. So after that, you have 49% left to go because you want to reduce your curse down to as low as possible, and this does make a huge difference. Every percent matters here. If you've played this setup before, you'll know what I mean. Even a few percentages off can make the build feel a lot more awkward. So you will see that in my lightning warp, I have the temporal chains with the hex touch support, and you can see right here the skill effect duration of temporal chains is 0.066. So you jump into a pack or next to a pack and you immediately gain the souls. There is never any like compromise to be made here. No Bladefall of Tartarus setup. This is just completely not needed. You can see temporal chains, hex touch, Arcane Surge, Lightning Warp. Arcane Surge is just there for a little bit extra cast speed. Hex Touch is level 2. This is the most important thing because at level 1 you get 50% reduced curse duration, and then your curse is at 0 seconds, and then you get nothing, right? You get nothing. It needs to be at least at 1. So you can see right here, level 2, 49%. Number 3, let's immediately talk about the Merc setup. This league has us kind of chase the best version of a Doriani's build. Doriani's prototype makes it so enemies nearby being 6-meter radius, so quite a bit more than a lot of the other nearbys would imply, have the lightning resistance equal to yours. If you put that on your Merc, that means their lightning res. This is usually a real struggle to get into your build and still not die, because dots will usually completely destroy you even if you convert hit damage, but on your Merc it does not really matter because Mercs are still very, very defensive. Just so you know, I really built this one to never die, and I mean never. There are situations I've heard of people in Abomination map with some nasty mods in the boss arena where it dies. I've personally not observed that with my current setup at all. So how do you get your Merc to minus 200 resistances? Well, it's with these cogwork rings. You can also go helicals, but it is just more expensive and just overkill. You cannot go below minus 200 resistances. So cogworks is just not just a budget option, but like, okay. So obviously, you could get recoup here as well, which would be the GG, but I just made the very basic version of these. You get a cogwork ring, then you spam chaos orbs until you get a either lightning, fire, or any resistance really, and then you can change it with harvest, right? You really want the perfect one, and after that, you will have to pay for our good friend the reflecting mist and get the minus lightning res. With current prices, I would highly recommend crafting these yourself. They are completely ridiculous. If you want to make a ring like this, the expected crafting cost is, I don't know, round about 15 to 20 divines. It is almost never the case that you upgrade both, which would be the only time you brick. It's like an 80 to 90% chance that you get exactly this outcome, because one version will be minus plus, the other will be plus minus, right? Most of the time at least. So you get one with cold and chaos res and one with fire and chaos res. You can also go for recoup if you can find that elsewhere, but that's how I did it. And that's really all you need for the minus 200. And then we have the Finds of Destiny, which is a non-offensive choice. You can get a lot more damage from your amulet if you want to, but this is what I did in order for my Merc to basically never die. There's a lot of other things going on here, but this is the biggest piece in the puzzle. And if you think, why am I not going for 15% call, right? That's the reason. It is just way too good. It does give a little bit of lightning res, so you can see right here that maybe if I had worse rings, or maybe if I had even higher lightning res here, it would be like I might be glazing under the minus 200, but that's what it is. The Anoint is Whispers of Doom, and that's because I have Enfeeble on hit on my gloves. This one actually works because now the curse can be applied on top of your Coiling Whispers, because Coiling Whisper sex targets are unaffected by your hexes, and the Merc is not you. More defensively, I also have a Dawnbreaker here. This might be overkill, but I absolutely love this one. It converts some of the lightning damage taken to fire, so that helps quite a bit in terms of defenses, but it also just a ton of armor, a ton of block, right? It's just a good shield. It's also a great vessel for the reduced extra damage from crit strikes, which I have on here, plus the Doriani's as well with the reduced extra damage from crits. This is also something that maybe could kill your Merc, not really anymore. I also have Unaffected by Poison from my Maw of Conquest on top of Recoup, which is very strong on Mercs. A little bit of regen in the implicit, but I don't think it matters too much. To make your Merc reflect immune, you want Ancestral Bond somewhere. There's other ways to do this, but this is how I chose to do it. Dawnstrider, it gives life, move speed, Ancestral Bond, so yeah, he just doesn't ever do any damage, so yeah, pretty good. Kiam's Binding, pretty self-explanatory. You want either Zealotry or Wrath Effect for min-max here. The gloves, you just want to finish off some of the resistances that you don't get here. Just make sure you don't get any lightning res, obviously. And your wand, on the wand, you want Wrath or Zealotry Aura Effect, and if you want to min-max, you Awaken Orb this together with a Socketed Gems are supported by Spell Cascade, which doesn't matter, but it also gives a little bit of global AoE, which helps the auras. Because for your Fallen Reverend here, you really want Wrath Zealotry. This is the big one, Wrath Zealotry. 2 offensive auras, super OP. Get this one ASAP. Make sure that you get your Merc before you start the build, because this is what happens if you don't have a Doriani setup. This is what happens to your damage, right? This whole build has no penetration inbuilt because it's kind of futile with the Doriani setup. But now if you don't have the Doriani setup, all of a sudden, I don't know, like you still have no penetration, so you're just completely screwing over your build, right? So this This build is exactly made for the Doriani setup. Now, defensively, there's really two shells. The first one is sort of the life-based with a lot of different things, right? Like a little bit of block, 100% spell suppression, a little bit of evasion, a ton of armor with Molten Shell, right? Molten Shell is still an absolute banger. Now, obviously, you don't take it in PoB, but I can tell you from personal experience, Molten Shell is just absolutely amazing. And the second one is CI. The main issue with CI is that you cannot use Righteous Fire of Arcane Devotion because it turns itself off at one life. And it gives you so much more cast speed. It is just so it feels so good. I cannot stress this enough. It is a multiplier on top of all the increased cast speed you're getting from Soul Eater. It's like, I wouldn't want to play this build without. So if you want to make a CI version, a more grounded version, you can do that, but I will not be part of it. This is way too much fun. I'm sorry. So I'll just quickly go over what I'm doing. It all revolves around Mage Blood and the typical Ruby, Topaz, Sapphire setup for 84% max res, and then you need to top it up to 90%. We do that with the Brass Dome. You need at least 4 max res because the last 2 you're actually getting from your shield, +2 to all maximum resistances. That also does count for Chaos Res, although you can get the Chaos Res max res to 80% if you make a very expensive shield. If you AUG Chaos over and over and over, expected cost probably like a few hundred divines. I personally didn't go for it. I didn't feel like it was necessary, but you can definitely do that as well. On top of that 90 max res, we have 100% spell suppress. Like I said, a tiny bit of block, tiny bit of evade. Now, if you're asking me why I did this, so evade chance is extremely low. The reason I didn't invest into it more is because this was, all it took me is basically just my base types. Just make my base types evasion, and I could still reach 50k armor, kind of like the Molten Shell breakpoint. The reason I did this is because of the risk meta. So right now, you really don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, so that if one map mod comes up, all your build is kind of screwed. So that's why I kind of diversified it a little bit in terms of like a little bit of block chance, a little bit of itch, and you would be surprised how far this actually goes on a life build anyways, right? Then 65% of Fizz Thickness Fire from the Elementalist Ascendancy plus the belt from your Merc. Then we also have the 50k armor plus Molten Shell setup, which is extremely potent. I absolutely love this. It's always underrated because people never tick Molten Shell in PoB, but it is up quite a lot. You get 20% reduced damage taken from enemies here. The maximum of chill is 40, so half of that is 20. That's the reduced damage you're getting. 22% less damage from flesh and stone. Do note that we have a ton of increased global AoE, so this is actually up basically all the time. Bastion of Elements shield, do not underestimate this one. It is up when you need it the most. I'm stun immune, ailment immune, poison immune, semi-bleed immune. Semi-bleed immune means from the shield right here, I'm never dying to bleed after getting this mod. Cannot be poisoned on my ring implicit. I would highly recommend this one. Chaos max hit is not our best one to begin with, but even Chaos thoughts are obviously not great on a life version. Whereas on the CI version, you wouldn't have to worry about it. Our recovery comes from a Stone Golem. So we have a ton of these Primordial Bond nodes right here that give us increased effect of golems. And yeah, just a ton of increased effect of golems intrinsically from Leech of the Primordial and stuff like that. So we're getting, I don't know what the current number is, net life recovery 509 for like this life that's like over 10% life regen. It is incredibly cozy. Then I made a choice here, which is I don't take a leech cluster and instant leech, mainly because I wanted to be map mod resistant once again, right? So cannot leech, all of a sudden it's all gone. What I'm actually doing instead is I'm getting a Watcher's Eye with gain life per enemy hit while affected by Vitality. Only do a level 1 Vitality on your character, so you enable this one. This one does not get turned off with cannot leech. You can totally normally run no leech on this build. I'll talk about this a little bit more in the map mod section, but that's about it. You still have a little bit of extra leech from your gloves, which you can either get from the implicit right here, so you can decide, do you want to get your lightning leech here, or do you want to get it back here on a Doriani's lesson, and then you can just get the spell suppress on your gloves instead, and you won't have to tattoo. As for map mods you can't run, there aren't any. You can always find a solution to basically every mod you have. Some of them I have permanently on the build, and then there's one solution here with the Enduring Mana Flask against no region that I just have to sub in sometimes. This doesn't really concern you if you're farming tier 17s, since it is only a tier 16 mod. As far as I'm aware, there is no At least not that I've seen anything that turns off your mana. You can't really go life tap because you're casting so goddamn fast. It will just shred you. But yeah, all you need is an Eternal Mana Flask, and you're gonna be... It's not gonna be pretty still, don't get me wrong, but it does what it's supposed to, right? So if that happens, if you see that on the risk you got no regen, you portal out, and you do this, and you portal back in, right? And that's all it is. Petrification statues and action speed less. I have a Balance of Terra set up actually here. With action speed cannot be modified if you've cast Temp Chains in the last 10 seconds. So if you have that on your map, I just made it a habit to press Temporal Chains, which I have here. Sometimes, right? Like every 10 seconds, you just press it and nothing's ever going to affect you. This is something you have to get used to, but if you're wondering why that's in here, that's why. The automatic Temporal Chains does not work. You actually have to hard cast it, but that's only if you have these tier 17 mods on your map. No Leech is solved by Vitality Watchers. Same thing with less recovery. I absolutely love this Watchers, especially in the risk meta, because it is not considered to be Leech. It's not instant Leech. It's not like anything. It is just life gain on hit. This mod I would say is absolutely mandatory, even if you're not running tier 17s, because there's just so many mods that screw with your recovery. Really annoying mods are still volatile cores. You can't tank them if there's not really anything scary on your map, but otherwise, you know the drill. Avoid the volatile cores. Volatile cores are also one of the reasons why I still have movement speed on one of my flasks right here. You might think this is wasted with how fast we're going to lightning warp. It's not really, because you have to walk over the volatile cores. I'll tell you straight up, it is actually like a big difference. It's also, I mean, movement speed on boots, I don't think I have to explain, but that's basically the gist of it. Shaper Beam, if there's minus max on the map, our max hit for dots is not great, right? That's why we have Poison Immune, kind of Bleed Immune, whatnot. But it only really happens rarely. Like, he doesn't always beam, and you can usually walk out of it immediately, but you can't just face tank it. For Showcase, I prepped this one right here. I even put in some average chisels for the 335% more currency, right? 16.5 with 4 risks. I just threw in an extra Breach Scarab here so that we can have a little bit more mobs. And yeah, this is like my Eater of World setup, just like a pretty normal Breach tree. And yeah, let's just see how it goes. So all you really have to do is Storm Call and then Lightning Warp around. Now, one thing I will say is that sometimes the Merc will stand on the edge of the screen and your Dorianis will not be up. It happens extremely rarely, but you might notice, especially in some of these extremely tanky maps, right? And other than that, all you really need to do at the start of the map is activate Righteous Fire, and nothing else really matters. So let's see what, for example, is on this map right here. What did we get? Anything fancy? Minus 20 all max, right? Like, this is pretty much expected. Like, there's obviously a lot of mods that are going to try and kill us here. Let's hope we have no volatile cores. I'm just gonna rush to the boss like I usually would real quickly. Yeah, kill the boss for better altars, and then you can kind of see what's going on. This build is basically made for this kind of content. Maybe I should actually loot after. So then you just take all the nasty mods. And yeah, let's quickly jump through. I'm going to collect all the altars like we usually would. And I'm just going to show you this. For example, you saw here I got hit by something. I hope that wasn't a Maul. I'm pretty sure it wasn't the volatile core, but I got hit by something. So you jump through, Lightning Warp, cast, Lightning Warp, cast. You're never really too long at one place. So yeah, it's not really an issue. The Leech is very reliable. As you can see, the damage is holding up very well. So we're here. Okay. And yeah, so one thing is, I would personally not get any. I'm just going to start some of the breaches. Maybe I can overlap a little bit. I would personally not get any, and I mean any MTX for this build, unless you have a very, very good PC. This is the standard MTX, and there is a reason why I went for the standard one. It doesn't look fancy or anything like that, but it is also kind of what you have to do. Boss right there, everything just kind of dies, as you can see right here. Now, also thanks to my Explodey Flask quite a bit. You don't need to use the Explodey Flask. You can go for something like Progenesis as well if you really want to. Yeah, and other than that, you guys know the drill. Some of the harder maps, you might die here or there. It can happen. It is what it is. Depends on how many risks you're actually running. Some of the strats run 3, some of them run 2, some of them run 5, right? So we'll just kind of depend on that. This one is quote-unquote only minus max, and a few other mods. We can look at them afterwards. But overall, seems like one of the easier maps right here. No Divines yet, which I'm pretty surprised by. But yeah, no Valdos either. let's just keep moving. The build is an absolute blast. I don't know what to tell you. It's like, it's basically like the evolution of everything I wanted to make. And this league just kind of, I don't know how to say it. This league just opened everything up, right? Like 16.5s just made breaches fun again and whatnot. Pretty shitty map in terms of loot, actually. But yeah, it is what it is. I just realized why, by the way. I actually had the wrong filter on. So I'll have to look at some of this gumball currency. But just so you know, basically all the... This filter is for a different strat, so this filter basically has all of the gumball currency hidden. But yeah, no divine. I know some of you guys like doing Ubers. This build obviously isn't made for it, but just so you know, you can definitely do it. You should probably replace your Defiance of Destiny with the Cull Amulet. Make sure that the Malignant Madness is not up, but the kill enemies if they're 15 or lower. So that's, I guess, the only change I would make. Let's quickly see if we can phase him before he does the ball phase. Build has a lot of damage, it's pretty good. You don't have to go ham from the get-go because he obviously starts out with some damage reduction, but yeah, you wanna jump at him like once or twice so you get your lightning warp up and your stacks up, and then you can see the damage is just kind of rolling. So yeah, nothing surprising here, but just so you know. Now, item-wise, let's go through it. We're using Sandstorm Visage, which sets your spell's base crit at your wand's base crit, which means you want a Prophecy wand, which starts at 10% crit, and then you want local crit chance, which you get with the Harvest enchant, and if you get 28% quality or higher, you can make the most out of it. So you can, for example, start crafting that and fracturing yourself and have a 28% Prophecy wand. You want to fracture the +1 to all spell skill gems. Then you want to basically throw on Essences of Woe for the spell damage until you get the +1 all lightning skill gems. And then in the suffix, you're just going to have to like reforge crit. You're going to have to probably even Veiled Exalted Orb, but that's kind of what you want to have. Other than the cast speed, you can also get on the crit on and then craft on the cast speed. The chance to gain Arcane Surge when you kill doesn't do anything. You get it already from your gear, so don't worry about that. You can also, from the Veil, get crit multi if there's a rare nearby. Sandstorm Visage, the +1 power charge doesn't really do much. I just had to buy it at that point. The +2 level of AoE gives my Righteous Fire of Arcane Devotion 2% more cast speed, a little bit for the auras, but that's about it. The perfect corruption would probably be Shock Effect and +2, or Shock Effect and Regen, anything in that perimeter, but yeah. Either way, it doesn't really matter too much. Sandstorm Visage, and you can start. Brass Dome, you really want at least a +3 in order to get your Storm Call to the last breakpoint of AoE. So you can see right here, if I put it to 20, nothing happens. But if I put it one further down, the levels scale the base radius. 30 is your cutoff point for that. So you can either not have a +4 chest and have a +3 chest, or you can not have a +4 Ami and have like a replica Dragon Fang or something, right? You can also make it work without all of that, but yeah, this is what it is. The max res is really important. You want at least +4 max res. It doesn't matter whether it's +4 or +5 because we also have +2 here, so we're overcapping by 1. Personally, I think that getting the +2 levels is more important than getting a Brass Dome, so I know it's really hard to get a Brass Dome with these kind of levels, so whatever you can make work, right? Like even stuff like a Belly of the Beast would be good here. Whatever floats your boat, right? But Brass Dome is nice because it fixes your max res and it fixes your crit. You do lose a little bit of life usually, but you don't because you have Supreme Ostentation, which makes it so your strength doesn't do anything anyways, so there's no downside. It also has a ton of armor, so it just fixes a lot of the problems of the build defensively. When it comes to Ami, you want a +4 Ami with crit multi would be nice. If you don't want to go for the gamble with the Reforged crit in the suffix, you can also craft on, I don't know, for example, Mana Regen, and then you can open up the Mana Regen on the ring or fix resistances. The way people make these is they spam for +2 level of all skills on an unsplit Focused Amulet, then they split it, isolate it, imprint it, and then what you want is a situation where you have a rare with only the +2 level of all skills. Then you do cannot roll attack modifiers, Aug Lightning. So the only outcome you can have is +2 lightning. And then you have the 2 prefixes. And for the suffix, you just, prefixes cannot be changed, Reforged crit. And you basically get this amulet. I only have a tier 4 crit multi. Obviously, this one goes up a lot higher. If you hit crit chance, bad luck, you can also re-imprint and do it again if you want to. And no, it needs to be exactly Hasty Demise, once again, to get the reduced skill effect duration. Ring-wise, it needs to be left on the left needs to be a dusk ring. If you put it on the right, you screw over the whole build, okay? It needs to be left ring slot, 15% reduced skill effect duration. Fractured Life is preferable here, and then you basically just spam Essences of Scorns for crit multi until you get mana regen, and then you reforge caster into cast speed. It's a 1 in 3 to get a tier 1. I have a very badly divined one. In the prefix, you can get the reduced mana cost of skill with just Veiled Chaos. You actually don't have to go for a Veiled Exalted Orb because you have that Fracture. So while at the start you might think, oh, getting the Fracture is more expensive, it's actually way more expensive to have to Veiled Exalted later. Because if you look at this, Veiled Chaos Orbs, which, yeah, you can fill up the affixes, but it almost never happens. 20C, and then if you go Veiled Exalted Orb, we're looking at, I don't even know what it's up to at this point. Do I even want to know what it's up to? I'm not sure. Oh my god, 17 divines. So yeah, highly recommend getting the Fracture first. Coiling Whispers cannot be poisoned is GG. Anything else you can get in the prefix is nice, but that's kind of how it is. Nothing else on this ring matters. For shield, I basically just spammed Greed Essences for the life until I got a decent evasion block chance ratio. You really want to have that +1 to all maximum resistances. If you can get it on an 86 base, this way you would probably have to fracture yourself like I did. Otherwise, you can just buy one and settle for less. In the suffix, getting chance to deal double damage is extremely easy. After you Veiled Chaos Orb, all you have to do is block Reduced Effect of Curse, which is like 3,000 waiting, and there you go. You can have that chance to deal double damage, and then you want to craft on Moving While Bleeding doesn't cause you to take extra damage. Do not underestimate this mod. It is very, very cozy. Glove-wise, I got extremely unlucky on mine, but on average, these are actually not as hard to make as you might think. If you want to look into my crafting highlights, you can see how I crafted them right there. There's some fuckery right now with recomps and being able to recycle the same mod over and over and over. So you basically never lose that hybrid Alva mod ever. You can just try over and over, and the only thing that's really hindering you is the price of fracturing orbs, but you're gonna hit it eventually. So if you want to check that out as well. But other than that, suppress, life, some kind of resistances. You definitely want the AoE and the prefix, so obviously start with suffixes first. After that, what do we have? We have Mage Blood. Now, any sort of implicit on your Mage Blood is going to be better than the Strength because we're using Supreme Ostentation. So if you want to min-max life, crit multi, move speed, whatever you can get your hands on, obviously has to be for Flask. On the boots, Fractured Life is a nice starting point, but these are just the usual chance to avoid elemental ailment boots that you've seen 100,000 times. Chaos res, any normal res, whatever you need to fill up for the build. Movement speed wise in the prefix, I went for move speed onslaught because we have no other source of onslaught. You can also go for move speed, and move speed if you haven't been hit recently, doesn't really matter. As much evasion as possible. These numbers do make a difference overall, even though we only have 7k evasion. For flasks, you want the obvious tri-ele that will alleviate all your res needs, as well as that give you a ton of max res, 9 max res each, with a Mage Blood and 70% increased effect. You want to be curse immune from this flask. You want to get some movement speed from this one. Chance to avoid being stunned, super important. And then also Granite Flask to kind of cap your Molten Shell. As the 5th flask, I'm currently using Oriaf's End because it's incredible in breaches. But probably the most optimal thing would be like a Progenesis, which would make you even more tanky. In general, try it out. Do not underestimate Oriaf's End on this build. I know it's usually a meme because the AoE is so small, but if you look at Oriaf's End in this build, you will quickly figure out that with the amount of global AoE that we have, it's actually 3.9 meters, so it's no joke. It doesn't have a fancy Herald effect, but you will notice it. In terms of gems, the only thing that matters on Stormcall is that it's 21. Awaken Spell Cascade as high as possible because the less AoE does actually go down with levels. As you can see right here with the +2 from the chest, it goes from 25 less AoE to 24, so that one is pretty damn big. Then get Inspiration as high as you can because of the mana cost issues, obviously, that we don't have because of Inspiration. Spell Echo, Awakened Spell Echo currently is at some ridiculous price. I don't even know what's going on. If you want to know the difference, you can see it in POB, but there's like a million things you want to buy before an Awakened Spell Echo. This is like min-maxing, just so you're aware. Awakened Ink AoE, probably really good if you don't have super good gear, especially. I do it for overkill. You might have to do it in order to even get to the 4.9 radius that you really want to be at. less duration, just to make the skill feel a ton better. In terms of golems, so I have Stone Golem, Lightning Golem, and Flame Golem right here. As well as that, I have a Chaos Golem somewhere, and then I have Summon Carrion Golem of Hordes. If you're wondering why that is, it's because it gives me extra golems, so I can actually have 6 up instead of 4. And that just gives me a little bit of extra increased damage. This one says increased damage per summoned golem. So I have Primordial Bond here. I have it on my second one, and I also have it on my Megalomaniac with the Enduring Composure. That's basically it. I also have an Enhance here because the quality gives you increased buff effect. Once again, just min-maxing. Make sure that your golems are up at all time. The most important golem is the Summon Lightning Golem because it gives you basically all your mana regen. It is incredible. Your Hex Touch setup I already talked about in the intro. If you don't know how this works, Hex Touch level 2. Everything else, level 1 Temporal Chains. Just make sure that's in there. Arcane Surge for a little bit of extra cast speed. Lightning Warp as high level as possible. We're reflecting immune anyways from Elementalist, so the damage doesn't matter. But it gives reduced duration per level, so you can actually get the Lightning Warp to 0 duration, which is huge. Other than that, what small things? Righteous Fire of Arcane Devotion gives us like 28% more cast speed with the extra levels. It is incredible. Flesh and Stone for defenses, Determ for defenses, a cast when damage taken setup with a Molten Shell, more duration. Make sure that it actually procs. We do have +2 to all level of skill gems, so just make sure that your Molten Shell isn't too high to actually be procced by the cast when damage taken. The more duration is just because the reduced duration, the global duration, does actually affect Molten Shell, so you want to compensate for that a little bit. And obviously, don't forget your Vitality. You only want it at level 1, so your Watcher's Eye is actually turned on. For jewels, first you can see right here my requirements, and then I put in Elegant Hubris, and it's all gone. That is because I'm using Supreme Ostentation. This means that you can ignore attribute requirements, but they also don't do anything anymore, which means you can now tattoo them away. So if you need resistances or something, this is how you get it, right? Like Chaos Res or Lightning Res from int nodes. You can also get Cold Res here, but most likely you're going to have to tattoo for Suppress. Anything you need, right? Reduced extra damage from crits if you don't have a Brass Dome, whatever it is, right? It's just, it's incredible, and it is very, very much worth it. It is just like, yeah, really strong. Light of Meaning I have up here for my Chaos Res because we're not CI, right? We need to fix it somehow. This one gives me an absolute crap ton. I think it's like 80-ish or whatever. For Implicits, you can actually get AoE. You can get increased effect of non-damaging ailments, which is obviously very strong on Elementalist. Other than that, your rare jewels, fit in as many as you can. You want as much crit multi as possible and then a life roll. That's literally just it. So these, for example, I made myself. Life, and then you just spam Deft Fossils. I don't know what Deft Fossils are at currently. These are very hard to roll, but yeah, you can make them yourself, and some of the outcomes that are, for example, for cold or fire skills can also sell for a little bit of extra. But either way, these are pretty hard to make, but you will need all the crit multi you can get, especially if you don't have any crit multi from your Ami, which is also expensive, right? So Balance of Terra is only, and I mean only here if you're doing hard risk mods, right? So for example, Petrified Statues and the less action speed per action taken in the last 4 seconds. This one will basically negate it, so I'm just pressing Temporal Chains every 10 seconds, and those mods do not exist. And also a Impossible Escape, probably the most important jewel right here, which gives you access to anything around Mage Bane, right? One Impossible Escape with Mage Bane, so you can pick up these nodes. Profane Chemistry is just a nice node to have, and Reflex is very, very good. So this is just a 7% life node, but still pretty good. As for the rest of the passive tree, you can see that we're basically just taking all the spell AoE. Important as well is if you don't need the Cast Mastery for everything, you can obviously remove it and put it right here for the 3% damage per charge, right? Like that's up to you. If you're looking for an Elegant Hubris, try and get chance to gain Frenzy here, and then try and get Enduring Composure on your Megalomaniac, but that might be very expensive soon, right? So you can also just go for a small cluster with Enduring Composure, or you can just say, screw the Frenzy charges and get Endurance charge if you've been hit recently on your Elegant Hubris as well. For Runegrafts, the only one I'm using right here is Runegraft of the Fortress. The downside doesn't do anything because we're Supreme Ostentation, and we get 40% global defense, which both counts for evasion and armor in our build. We're not really scaling ES, but it's still extremely, extremely worthwhile. Now, other than that, we're taking the usual Golem package, right? This is obviously a very nice Light of Meaning. We're taking the Power Charge just because it's in here and it's efficient. This Crit Mastery is super important. We don't have much effective non-damaging ailments. I actually used to have a non-damaging ailment medium cluster here, but it kind of screwed up a lot of my points. So I just went this route. Also, if you're not overcapped on crit, definitely take High Voltage. This node is very good and you might be confused. The only reason why I didn't use it is because I just have too much crit. Like, I'm literally already at 100. But if that's not the case, these points are incredibly efficient. 12 multi into 100% crit. So there's that. Other than that, we're using all the AoE we can get from Towering Threat, Vast Power, right? Like Towering Threat, Vast Power times 3. And yeah, that's pretty nice. Also a little bit of life. And yeah, the last one, you want a Megalomaniac. If you can get Enduring Composure and Primordial Bond. I want to make this clear. Primordial Bond is not worth getting a Megalomaniac for. I don't care how many people you see doing this. You're not giving up a jewel slot for a Primordial Bond. It's insane. It's an insane endeavor. The only reason I'm doing it is because I also have Enduring Composure. Now, what you do if you don't have the budget for this jewel is you get a small cluster with Enduring Composure. Primordial Bond is so... These Megalomaniacs are so overhyped, but if you can get both, that's incredible. But Enduring Composure is really the superstar, just so we're clear, okay? You're also going to save a point if you get a small cluster, because it's only 2 points. Or if you say screw it, once again, you're getting Endurance Charges here, you just get a crit multi-jewel. Trust me, these are so overhyped. Primordial Bond is strong, but not that strong, especially since we're not using that crappy Golem helmet anyways, right? Just so you know. Okay. Other than that, definitely take notice of all these 2% spell suppressed tattoos. As I already said, you can get a Doriani's Lesson back here and fix the leech that way, and then get 10% spell suppress on your glove implicit instead. And then you don't need these tattoos, and you can maybe use it for something like cold res or whatever. Now, let's talk about the CI version next. There is actually a lot of people who ask me about this. The downside of CI is basically that you can't use Righteous Fire of Arcane Devotion, which is a big damage dip. And in general, you will have to do some stuff that will reduce your damage. You'll probably come out at around about 30 to 50% less damage, but you'll be a lot tankier, but the build will also feel less good because you're not going to have that more cast speed. So I will not be supporting that. I will not give you like some half-hearted POB or anything like that. But if you want to try it, one thing I want to make totally clear here is, let's talk about the Archdemon Crown. In my last video, I foolishly showed you this right here, right? With like less duration hypothermia, right? Plus free base crit, and socketed gems deal 30% more elemental damage. Here's the catch, and I've talked to crafters who didn't know this, a ton of them actually, which is, it is one of those hilarious things that you don't know if they actually have any purpose or if it's just something they overlooked. Let me see, helmets, strength int. So look here. If you see this one, this is from, I don't know, was it Horror or something? I think it was Horror, right? So you would spam these and try to get your suffixes, and then you want to exalt spam into less duration. Okay, it doesn't work though, because if you look here, for some reason, this mod blocks less duration. And I've tried to find similar, like, things like this. It doesn't really exist anymore. This was a thing in the past, but for some reason it's still there. So just so you know, if you're crafting with horrors, you cannot get less duration on your helmet. If you're trying over and over, that is why. I have no idea why this exists, but just so you're aware. So I'm going to tell you how to craft that one instead. Instead, you would have to go for an Archdemon Crown like this, which does lose the 30% more damage, but gets a crap ton of AoE. And I mean like 70 or 80% AoE, which you could then transfer into other sources of damage because now you don't need that anymore elsewhere. So it is still extremely good. And if you want to do a CI version, Archdemon Crown is 100% the way to go. But here's what you need. So you are going to have to Awaken Orb now. And in some ways, it's actually less, it's actually cheaper. In some ways, it's a little bit more RNG. So what you will have to do is Awaken Orb together, increased AoE and less duration. You have to annul the third prefix, or if it's open, whatever. And then you have to, prefixes cannot be changed into the Veiled modifier and unveil AoE, right? Once that happens, you get your prefixes. Then in the suffixes, you have to do prefix cannot be changed, Reforge Caster. It's a 1 in 3 to get the tier 1 spell crit. And then you would have to Exalt spam into a Hyperthermia or do it again. I think Exalt into Hyperthermia is like a 1 in 33. At some point, you might have the problem that you're going to fill up suffixes and whatnot. You know the deal. If you can make this build work, you know what that means. But either way, it is possible. People have already linked me multiple of those in the last few days. So if you want to go for CI, go for it. And if you're wondering why all that hassle, well, on a CI build, you want the rare body armor. So you're not going to get the +2 levels. So you need to get it from your helmet, which is going to be then Archdemon Crown. So yeah, you're just going to go for a juicy 1300 ES chest. CI version has not been tested. Only do this if you actually know what you're doing and you're willing to burn a lot of currency in the name of science. Yeah. This is just the only kind of hint I'm going to give you. As for leveling, I would highly recommend Havoc's Twink leveling guide over on Maxroll. As always, I leveled a little bit different because I just wanted to play a little bit of KB just for funsies. I can hover over the items real quickly, but I basically just threw together a bit of stuff, right? Like Thrill Steel, Eclipse Solaris, just like a normal setup with Wand, a little bit of flat damage. This one's actually pretty cute because it has skills, fire, and additional projectile. The usual stuff. There's nothing really fancy here. You get a ton of flat damage early on. You get a lot of spell damage that then gets converted to increased damage. So this one was really, really fun, but in general, I don't think it's as efficient as, for example, Havoc's Guide. But yeah, wand leveling is just has a special place in my heart. I guess one thing I would throw in is people always forget about Ixol's Temptation. This ring is just so broken and it's like usually pretty damn cheap. For leveling, it gives flat damage. It gives res, life, so much attack and cast speed. It just feels so goddamn good. So maybe that's the only thing you should also copy from this setup. Anyways, though, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Maybe it's something you want to strive towards, something aspirational, or maybe you learned a thing or two. Either way, I've been having an absolute blast with this build, and I'm probably going to also play it for the next 4 to 5 days over on twitch.tv/Palsteron if you want to check that out. I will be putting out some more content. I got to move, unfortunately, in the mid of July, which is going to be very hot. And I might be absent for a little bit there. But overall, this league has been an absolute banger. Probably going to put a thoughts video out soon. Yeah, I've just been blasting. I've actually love 16.5s. I'm just, yeah. PoE1 is back. It's so back. Either way, with that message, since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.